What's up, everybody? Brett here, super stoked today to be bringing you guys some Total War Warhammer 2 quick battle content. I'm going to be playing as Thoric. We are going to be smashing the Dark Elves. And this battle, Hell Pit, has some pretty advantageous high ground for the Dwarves. I was happy to get the high ground here. Look at my build. I wanted to go like an old school Thoric theme. So I've got his unique hero, who is a Thane. He's actually quite expensive. Even stripped down, let's go ahead and take a look at him. Even stripped down, the guy costs 1,000 gold. He's got almost no HP on the smaller unit model. I always play on Ultra, so whenever I see I've only got three Grudge Throwers, I feel like I've been cheated out of some artillery action. But anyway, causes terror. It's got 75% physical resistance, which is why the HP and armor are so low. He's, of course, unbreakable. And he's just awesome. I just wanted him in the army to see what he could do. I've never used him in this type of way before. We've, of course, got the big man himself, Thoric. He's going to be riding around on his... I mean, it does kind of look like a toilet seat, if we're being honest. It's like that Rick and Morty episode where Rick has, like, a private toilet in his own, like, dimension. Anyway, I've taken Rune of Negation and Rune of Wrath and Ruin, which I think are the two most important ones. I want that damage resistance in case my opponent tries to snipe me with armor piercing, which the Dark Elves are renowned for. And then the Rune of Wrath and Ruin in case I see a big infantry blob ready to go. We've also got Locus of Power and Forge Fire here, which lowers the armor of anything around us. And at this point, guys, I didn't realize the Shades were sneaking up on me, but I knew there was some funny business afoot whenever I saw my opponent's army. I counted a little bit, and I was like, alright, something's missing. I don't know what it is yet. I felt like there was something, perhaps Vanguard deployed behind me. I don't know what the deal is for this map, how the Vanguard deployments go up here. But I felt like I was missing something, and I was just kind of waiting for it, which is why I've got the Miners back here with the Hammers protecting my Grudge Throwers. And like I said, old school themed build. We've got Hammers back here, whose biggest change made it so that they actually do a bit of splash damage now, which they didn't before. They basically hit two models whenever they swing. Frontliners of just Miners with blasting charges. These guys are super cheap, very cost effective, especially versus the Dark Elves. I do like them. And we've got the, alright, these are the two probably most unique additions here. We've got the Grumbling Guard. I feel like Thoric would approve of these gentlemen. They're one of my favorite units in the game. I love their color scheme. The green and gold, where like the ruby accents look sick. They give vigor to everyone around them as well as encouragement. And they are themselves immune to psychology. Very strong unit. Especially, you use them like a bodyguard unit. It's usually how I play with them. And then last but not least here, perhaps the most important unit besides Thoric on this side of the field, the Scoldra Guard. Which I'm going to use. I didn't realize their range was only 90. I thought they had maybe like 110 range. I was going to use them to try and keep chariots away. And big monsters, depending on what my opponent went with. I like them because they're super heavily armored at 125. And with Thoric giving Rune of Negation, you can keep them alive if your opponents try to focus them out of the fight. But Scourge Runner Chariots, of course, are going to be a thing. Shades for heavy armor piercing. They can get right up close and personal to a Dwarven army without the Dwarves seeing them. We've got some Dark Riders here with shields. I might have deployed them. I might have Vanguard deployed them, though maybe they were worried I might deploy on this part of the battlefield. So what I'm going to want to do here is kind of wedge myself in this area. It's going to give these Shades the high ground, but I didn't know that at the time. I didn't know where the Doom would fall. So I just kind of tried to take the best position I could. I have the high ground. I've got the ranged advantage with my artillery pieces. But my opponent is going to scoot their entire army back. He's got Bleak Swords and Dark Shards aplenty. I didn't realize at the time that these were the Bolt Fiends. And if you look at them, not only do they look sick, I love the way these guys stand with their crossbows ready on their shields. These guys also have Shield Breaker, which bypasses missile parry, but they also have 145 range compared to the 125 of your normal Dark Shard. So they're a pretty scary unit. And then held in reserve here are the Black Ark Corsairs. They're a little bit protected from missile damage just due to their higher army, and they're infantry blenders, which, you know, is what you want versus the dwarves. So they're kept in reserve, making sure that they stay out of range of things like my Grudge Throwers, which have a pretty long range. So I'm having to scoot here. Keep in mind, once again, I cannot see these Shades. Let's go ahead and put it in normal speed here as we adjust. And this is going to be a game of inches. We're going to micro until we get into the front. And one last thing, the Sorceress with the Lore of Death, Spirit Leech. The primary spell that's going to be used this game, just going to use her on a horse to try and snipe out my artillery. It's got her hidden behind a tree here, probably in case I have cannons. And then Soul Blight's also a pretty nice value spell, lowering the armor and weapon damage and armor piercing damage of the dwarves is a pretty viable tactic. Still cannot see these guys. But anyway, we're going to get in a position. We're going to start trying to shoot at whatever we can. These trees are pretty annoying and are going to block a lot of my shots from a lot of my pieces this game. And I'm going to have to be on top of like microing to make sure they're not wasting their shots. Now, grudge throwers are a bit of an investment. I mostly take them, one, because I'm playing as Thoric, and I think he approves of this old-timey technology. Two, because they have great range at 440. But without chevrons, and if they're not the Goblobber, their accuracy is pretty low. I just wanted to use them to draw my opponent to me, but my opponent wants to play... I mean, I don't know. I would call this slightly unfun, but attacking the dwarves up a hill is also kind of unfun. So he's going to get his Scourge Runner chariots to shoot out here. They're shooting through the woods. Some of these shots aren't landing. Something about this angle is very weird. And I'm going to be moving my Quarrelers, of which I have 3, and my Scolder Guard. I'm going to keep one to this side. I think I caught a glimpse of these shades at some point. Or maybe I moved them just to try and see if I could catch the Supreme Sorceress, who I think hurt herself in an overcast. Yeah, I think she just did it again. No, she just popped Arcane Conduit. She's trying to take my Grudge Throwers offline, which is fine. And once again, not the most expensive. If she was casting on Hans Valherson, she would be crushing him right now. Bit of a missed opportunity in my opinion. And that's going to kind of be the name of the game for my opponent here. I feel like a lot of his targeting was a bit off, though the idea was correct. Keep your army away from my Grudge Throwers. Try to get value where you can out of things like your Shades and your Scourge Runner chariots and your Sorceress. But because I didn't just bring the Grudge Throwers, I also brought 3 Quarrelers. I was able to play this game. I'm able to snipe back on these Shades. So we're going to get a few volleys here on the Supreme Sorceress. That's not what I want to be doing. Some of these shots are falling short, but the Quarrelers are going to be returning fire. And with the Scourge Runner Chariot coming back in, I want to get my Scolder Guard in a position, but they need to get very close. The Scourge Runner Chariots have, honestly, too much range. I think 150 is too much for these dudes. And they have great armor piercing. They've been nerfed a little bit recently. But he's trying to take my Quarrelers offline, which is not a bad play. But I'm going to turn my Grudge Throwers. If he's going to keep his entire army back here, then I'm just going to turn and start lobbing boulders up this hill. And plenty of these are going to hit. Hard to know what he's shooting at here, but once my Scolder Guard starts shooting in, these guys have incredible damage. Trees are going to be a little bit the bane of my existence, but if he leaves his Scourge Runners here, they're going to get crushed. Heavy, heavy armor piercing. They're very accurate. One Grudge Thrower is going to be on the Dark Shards. The other one's going to get taken out, and that's fine. As long as we trade well, my Quarrelers are going to move into position to help me fight off these Shades. I'm going to send the Grudge Thrower crew to try and like engage some of them in melee so that they can't get such good focus fire. And look at the damage that just came in on my Quarrelers. These guys get melted. And they want to charge on the Scolder Guard. I'm actually okay with that. The Scolder Guard are so tanky. All they've done is brought themselves closer to my hammers. And I'm going to send Hans... Man, I don't know his last... I'm just going to call him Hans. I'm going to send in Hans from Die Hard. I'm going to send him in to try and push back the Bolt Fiends, the Dark Shards. His physical resistance, I'm hoping, will serve him well. If not, I mean, you're just targeting miners. And there goes the Spirit Leech on my other group there. Now, this Shade got a little too happy. They engaged in melee versus hammers, and they're going to pay the iron price for that, because the hammers are just going to mess them up. While my other 2 Quarreler groups here are going to focus fire this one group of Shades. And whenever I have that rallies, I'm going to send back into melee. The Dark Riders came all the way up and around, but I was able to intercept most of them with my hammers. Meanwhile, my Longbeards and Thoric pushed off into the forest here to try and push back these Scourge Runners. There's a lot of stuff going on, a lot of play happening. Trying to keep the Dark Shards back. Scolder Guard, I'm trying to get them to fire. My opponent's attacking me from, 4 different angles at the moment. And it's a chaotic game. Once we drive off these Dark Riders, though, that's an entire angle of attack that's gone. No more cav. I'm happy that Hans is the one taking the damage. My opponent's going to start moving his front line finally into the fight. We still have one artillery piece online. It's not much, but my opponent wants it. And I'm not going to take the bait. I don't need to send my army out here and overcommit. What I need to do is get these shades out of my back line. My opponent is mistargeting with these miners here. He should definitely be shooting at my hammers. 100%. And I realized this repeatedly. I'm like, I got to get my hammers out of here. If he ever starts shooting them, I want to get them out. The Quarrelers are going to be key to me winning this fight. And just mucking them up with stuff like Grudge Throwers, hoping that they can get in melee. I'm going to get these hammers under control here in a bit. I think they were chasing off the Dark Riders, and then they ran off the battlefield really fast, and then I need to pull them back. Scolder Guard, bringing them in here to try and push back the Scourge Runner so that I can get Hans out of here. He's in the trees. I was trying to do some sneaky business, but at the end of the day, I took way too much damage from the Bolt Fiends and such. And I just need to get them out, because I can still save them. A charge coming in from the Sorceress. She is going to get hurt real bad by the blasting charges. Scolder Guard, also, honestly, kind of fair in melee. But I'm going to circle up, catch her. She's stuck on the mass of the Scolder Guard. And Thoric plus Hans each get a huge hit. They break her, and then she shatters. Boom. No more caster, no more Lord. That's pretty awesome. And I'm not going to chase, obviously. She's shattered. So I'm going to try to pull everything back behind the relative safety of my minor front line. The Shades have been temporarily driven off. My Quarrelers still have excellent ammunition. I still have one. No, how many Grudge Throwers do I have left online? 2? No, all 3 pieces are online. Thank you, Dawi, for being the best engineers in the world. And we're firing here, but these trees keep catching everything. I have no problem sending in my half-dead miners with blasting charges as a sacrifice, while we kind of assume better positions. Quarrelers, once again, just keep these Shades back. We out-trade them. We're more heavily armored, and we're shielded. And we've managed to, you know, keep a numerical advantage despite being 2v1. The Scourge Runners are going to sneak in here past the defensive formation I was trying to set up, and that's okay. I didn't expect them to go this deep. If they did go this deep, I was thinking in my mind, they're dead. And we're going to see if I can pull that off. And I realized, holy crap, they snuck past my Grumbling Guard. I would have thought that they would just pull back, but we're going to trap them now. And destroy the chariots. And with that, I mean, is that the last of the chariot units on the field? No, there's another Scourge Runner here. At this point, I might do the same thing. I might just keep them in a sort of reserve and use them as just sort of a long-range unit until they ran out of ammo, which they just did. Now they're just chariots. Sending in my miners. Now, our problem right now is currently that these Dark Shards, though they don't have much ammunition left, I don't want to just let them fire. I still have some Grudge Thrower ammo. My blasting charges, some of them are being wasted. The Shades decided to sneak back around, and I lost vision of them. But I figured they must be coming. So I brought my Quarrelers down, and we're just going to do our best to keep them out of the fight. I sent the miners up and around here because I didn't know where the Shades were, and there we go, we've uncovered them. But we'll bring them up and around, and they'll manage to join the fight before all is said and done. Scourge Runners being pushed off. Dark Shards being pushed off. Bolt Fiends are still in here. Miners are taking the shots and doing the fighting. Meanwhile, my Hammers, my Grumbling Guard, almost in perfect shape, immaculate shape. I managed to keep 8 of my Scolder Guard alive. They have ammo, and even 8 Scolder Guard, guys, can do big damage. They have physical resistance. How much do they have? That's a hard thing to check. Oh, here we go. Rune of Wrath and Ruin. I've been waiting this entire battle to use it. Get wrecked, nerds. And that took out those Bleak Swords almost instantly. I see these Scourge Runners coming in. I'm going to try to intercept with my Hammers, whose heavy armor piercing. Doesn't matter that they're not anti-large. If they can get on these Scourge Runners, they're going to tear them up. And even though these are Quarrelers, they're not weak in melee, so they don't just instantly die to something like an uphill Scourge Runner charge. These Black Ark Corsairs want to come into the fight. But I mean, Hammers, man. Hammers are the literal perfect counter here. The Scolder Guard are shooting in now. Looks like they're hitting more of my Quarrelers than the Scourge Runner, but that's okay. Probably going to want to bring them down here. Thoric's job right now is to stop this entire force here from pushing forward. And I assumed he was going to get heavily focus fired, but then I realized how little ammo my opponent had left, and I was like, oh, it's on now. Rune of Doom, let's give ourselves that melee attack bonus I've been waiting to pop all game, and we're also causing fear. We might rout some of the stuff that's in the back line fighting my hammers. Quarrelers, I want to bring them back online. And Thoric just has to hold here. It's him and 2 groups of miners. And yeah, you watch him swing that that lightning hammer that he uses. It's pretty sick looking. There we go. Really cool effect. And the hammers are coming to him. The grudge throwers who ran out of ammo are going to be going to try and just keep the shades out of here. The shades are decent melee combatants. You can look at their stats, melee attack and melee defense quite high. And I realized in a minute that the Scolder Guard, once again, the trees are my nemesis. Some of their shots are landing, some of them in the back of my own miners. And I need to move them, and I will move them. Cleaning up the back line, chasing off stuff, using my weakest units to try and chase off the Black Ark Corsairs. And the Grumbling Guard are coming in. Quarrelers still with ammo, can fire into the blob. And at this point, this is a pretty dangerous blob for my opponent to make, knowing that I've got Thoric. Knowing that I've got the Rune of Wrath and Ruin. Hammers are in the mix. Go ahead and K-mode this. Scolder's Guard are landing some beautiful shots, but it's getting a little risky. And here you go. I'm going to reposition. But Thoric in and amongst the trees, man. Just surrounded by the Dark Elves. With his massive armor, he doesn't care. These Bleak Swords have nothing for him. Even my Grudge Thrower crews are getting in on the action. And here we go. He charges right into the mix, and then I'm going to drop the Rune of Wrath and Ruin right there for maximum carnage. And that's going to be the beginning of the end. As everything shatters and routs. And I get like a nice lineup here for my Scolder Guard to shoot it to the flank. I'm waiting to charge him with the hammers because I don't want to shoot myself in the back. But fun battle. I wasn't expecting to have to micro that much. When you play the dwarves, you kind of do it. I was doing it to sort of save my hands. You know, I've got hand problems. And doing jiu-jitsu has been making them kind of worse. Just constantly like fighting for grips and stuff. My hands are starting to like deteriorate a little bit, which is why I'm taking a break today. But man, even using my keyboard and mouse can be a little bit painful. But I took this battle thinking, you know what, I'll be the dwarves. I'll be a little bit more stationary. Let my opponents come to me. I'll react, of course. But my opponent really forced a lot of reactions from me. Scourger and a Chariots, I would expect these guys to get 100 kills each. But I mean, they didn't even get their value. Like, even add them together, they like didn't get their value. That's kind of the name of why all of this went wrong here, is almost none of these units paid for themselves. Shades did okay. Let's see, who are the real MVPs here? I mean, Thoric's Rune of Wrath and Ruin was very strong. Hans here was just a damage sponge, as were my miners, who did great. They felt like unbreakable troops. They lasted so long. And then the hammers, had they been allowed to fight, would have definitely gotten their value. Scolder Guard was a massive threat, got more than its value, which is great. And then, of course, you know, the Grudge Throwers, they forced my opponent forward, and they forced my opponent to use all the magic on them. Interesting choice to bring that kind of magic to a dwarf fight, because the dwarves are resistant to magic, but it must have been done with the intention to use it on an artillery piece. And my opponent, I guess, just didn't think outside the box. Has this, like, dwarf-killing, pre-built army, perhaps, and didn't think, I don't know, man. I cast two Spirit Leeches on Hans, and he just dies. Like, that's 1,000 gold for a couple spells. That would have been very much worth. But anyway, guys, that's it for me today. Thank you so much for watching. Hope you guys are enjoying the new DLC and FLC content. Glad y'all finally have a chance to get your hands on it. I'm super happy for y'all. I'm happy to be able to get back on the ladder and play some new games. But yeah, that's it. Take care, y'all. And I'll see you in the next one. Like, subscribe, all that good stuff. Later, guys.